Hi, I'm Flávia Torreão Timan. In this lecture, we'll talk about biodiversity and environmental education with a focus on protected areas. Brazil is a biodiversity hotspot, and 20% of the land is protected. Since the creation of the National System of Conservation Units in the year 2000, our protected areas are divided in two main types: areas of integral protection and those of sustainable use. We'll discuss here mainly the relationship of people and protected areas and some issues that arise regarding the restrictions of land use in those areas. When we mention Brazil and biodiversity in the same sentence, what comes to mind? If you search the internet using those words, you'll probably see pictures of vast stretches of forest, and beyond the forest there are also other formations such as the Cerrado, a Brazilian savanna, Caatinga, which are dry lands in the northeast, and grasslands to the south. Brazil also has a rich cultural diversity. For example, the indigenous people in Brazil account for 0.4% of the total Brazilian population, and that's over 800,000 people. And there are 192 native languages spoken in Brazil, besides Portuguese. There are also other traditional groups, such as the Quilombolas, inhabitants of dwellings in the countryside, established in the past by slaves and where their descendants live to this day. The creation of national parks and other conservation units often brings those and other groups, such as small ranchers, fishermen, forest product harvesters, in conflict with the biodiversity conservation purpose of the protected areas. This may happen because people have to relocate from their lands once the park is created, or because harvesting and other economic activities are prohibited or very limited in the protected area. Other problems arise in the outskirts of the parks when wild predators attack livestock in neighboring farms. A vast array of research has shown that environmental education is an important ally in dealing with those conflicts, and that communities are essential partners in conservation efforts. But if the creation of protected areas is seen as a restriction of rights by the community, how can we engage people in conservation efforts? One way is to open a dialogue with the community through an environmental education process that actually listens to the locals and respects their own history, which in most cases precedes the creation of the protected areas. Understanding the meanings attributed to the land, to the environment, and to biodiversity conservation by the local people can help build a convergence of knowledge that makes possible, through a transdisciplinary and dialogical approach, the elaboration of a management plan for the protected area. Environmental education in this context must deal with the complexity of the situation created by environmental laws that establish integral protection areas in populated land. Environmental education processes inspired by the work of Paulo Freire have helped establish a dialogue among the groups, recognizing the importance of populations in and around protected areas for biodiversity conservation and their stake on it. Those groups also hold knowledge about resources management, medicinal and other biodiversity uses, many times deeply grounded in their own cultural traditions, which can aid achieving the sustainable use and fair distribution of benefits arising from biodiversity components use, issues present in the 1992 Convention on Biological Diversity. Two such examples are presented here. One is the Pissinguaba region of the Serra do Mar State Park in the state of São Paulo. This is a beautiful Atlantic forest area nestled between the ocean and the mountains. There are 4 main dwellings inside this area. Here, government, tourists, fishermen, quilombolas, traditional communities, and indigenous people have to negotiate living arrangements and natural resources use, both restricted since the creation of the park. Issues of environmental justice and the very need for excluding people from inside protected areas in order to achieve biodiversity conservation are under discussion. Organizations representing the various groups have been discussing the park's management plan with the Forest Foundation. the government body that answers for the state's parks. Another example is the Serra da Canastra National Park in the state of Minas Gerais. Almost 40 years after the establishment of the park, researchers working in a managed wolf conservation project in the area still identified community dissatisfaction with the park due to the removal of families, the restrictions imposed on land use, and occasional threats to livestock from predators. In both cases, environmental educators have participated in the discussions and the constant search for negotiated solutions to conservation issues.